Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to identify the trace. Go ahead and hit one. That's a fishhook trace with some backup. All right, so we've identified the trace as a fishhook trace with some backup. Then you go down to my chart, and we'll do a nice chart for you. But the Z trace is the red. The heel to toe trace is the black. The fishhook trace is the yellow. The lateral trace is the dark green. And the linear is the lime green, the light green. I've done a lot of research on this, and I'd like you to sort your shafts in the order that we're laying them out here. If you reverse them, that's fine, but I like going left to right. The proper shaft has been selected and identified. You get the golfer to go hit 4 or 5 shots, not a ton of shots, 4 or 5 shots. Watch what they're doing. They can use launch if they like, but I'm looking for a height of about 120 feet. As I mentioned, that's the peak in which the ball's determined to climb or created to climb. And then if they come back and they say, well, can I try another one? What I like doing is polarizing this. I'll take them way up to the Z trace if they're in the fishhook. And they'll have a totally different feel than what they're doing with the fishhook trace. And or I might bring them down, sometimes to the linear or lateral, and that'll feel totally different than what the fishhook trace likes, and it's going to give them a totally different trajectory, and that's going to help make the sales so much quicker you won't believe it. So on the back of the shafts, it says the trace tracking system, but it identifies the weight of the shaft, heavy, but we put a speed too fast for the heel to toe trace, strong, medium, and light. And what we found is that this helps eliminate the questions for LA, RS, or X flexes. Because obviously the heavier the shaft is, the more stiffer that it is. But what we're really looking for here is tip control and mid-shaft flex point control. So these are all different shafts. They're completely different. Each one of these is totally separate design for load unload patterns. And this will really help make shaft fitting a lot faster, a lot easier, and give your customer a lot better satisfaction. Now what we do, for example, we identified the bend as a fishhook trace. So we'd get him to hit 4 or 5 shots. But a master move here is I would get him to say, okay, now Ben, you want to try another shaft? He'd say, sure. I might put him into the linear trace shaft just so he feels how loose it's going to feel in his hands. He won't be able to get the same control in flight, and he won't be able to jump at it with the same amount of accuracy and distance. And that's exactly that's a master move that we find very effective for using the swing balance trace tracking shaft fitting system. All right, so when you order the shafts, you're going to get them as a full length raw shaft. You're going to put them into the adapter of the existing club for your customer, and or you can order the adapter and the collar for that particular driver with the shaft built right in. But in both cases, they'll come full length with no grip on it. We've heard a lot of feedback over the years. I can change my trace, I can get linear on my irons, but I just can't change my driver trace. And that turns out to be consistent on tour as well. So most touring pros will be linear in their irons. They know how to change their trace in their irons to be optimal with a linear trace, but their driver trace is almost like a fingerprint. And that's the premise on which this trace tracking system is built.